We are currently heading north alongside the border between Russia and Japan to get us close to the contested islands that very few people have ever heard of.
If we would drive out there, we would get shot.
I've got a confession. I've got a slight obsession with maps. And an odd pastime of mine is to roam on Google Maps, zooming into strange and unusual part of our globe, searching for our world's hidden stories. And as we were preparing for our trip to Japan, I found something that surprised me. Russia. Just a few kilometers away from Japan are a mysterious stretch of islands oddly close that I'd never heard of before. The deeper we looked, the more confusing it became, as neither of the two countries have been able to actually agree on who these islands belong to. But today, they are fully in the hands of Russia. Yet Japan does not agree, meaning that on this little corner of our planet, a dispute that dates all the way back to World War II never fully ended. With lots of questions about this stretch of islands, but initially feeling very unclear what we would find in this unexplored region, we decided to simply book our flights and head straight into this mystery at Japan's wild northern edge. Here, in yet another of the least populated places in the country, we'll explore 3 locations along this coastline with the mission of finding someone with direct stories and experiences from these islands, asking the question, what happened here? And what stories hide in this strange and unexplored part of Japan?
Over the next few days, we're going to be going along this wild, untamed coastline to see what we can find and who we can meet. And we're starting with seeing how close we can get to these islands from this little ship. This is as far as we can get while still being in Japan. Once we cross past a certain amount of kilometers off the coastline, then you cross the border. And you can see just how massive one of the contested islands right here is. The people who live along this coast have to look at it every day.
After getting back to dry land, we headed down the coast from Raosu to the coastal town of Shibetsu to see if we could find some locals that could help us understand more about how these islands became so contested. But as we began to walk around, the town seemed almost completely deserted.
We are in a tiny little fishing town, smack in the middle of the U that surrounds these islands on the map that we want to explore. This entire street here are closed restaurants. It just feels like there used to be a life here that no longer exists. We're not too sure which direction we should go, but the real end point is going to be getting to the very last cape on the other side, going south, getting as close as we possibly can to the border.
It's a bit trippy. It's a bit strange to know that these disputes and conflicts are going on and people wanting to go there but not able to.
This is going to be a bit challenging to find the right people to talk to, but we're going to be on the search.
この辺だってね、今種別なんか全然見るところもなんもないんだもう全然人口が減ってるでしょもう全然店なんか何も機能してねえんだもん
Oh my god, we are so close! These islands that we're looking at right now, Japan claims are theirs.
People were sent away from there. 20,000 people, so close to the home, you know, like people over here. Some of them lived over there.
こんにちは。こんにちは。かわいい。質問とか何個かさせていただいても。全然大丈夫です。
Do you live here or where do you live?
出身がここで今里帰りで帰ってる。考え。父が漁師で、船近づくと撃たれたり危ない。 あと同級生のおじいちゃんおばあちゃんが向こう出身の人とかも結構多く、今もだからその辺歩いてる人はもしかしたら3世とか2世とかそういう人もまだまだ全然多いんじゃないかなとは思いますね。
バイバイ。Imagine kids, they would never ever argue, fight, dispute about like things like this.
Don't kids fight over like toys all the time though?
Oh, shoot.
No, that was more you, man. Not me. Here we share.
You were a mature child.
We see a man bird watching. So we're gonna slowly and steadily. Konnichiwa.
ここの船の行き来とかはもうどれくらい前からないんですか？
いやもう戦後はずっとないですよ。まあ樺太の人たちはみんな戦争終わって、ロシアに占領されて、もう命からがら引き上げてきた、まあ逃げて帰ってきた。まあ一応交流っていうことでね、ロシアとの関係がまだちょっと良かった頃は、いわゆるビザなし交流って言って、それなりにこう国と国との交流の中でいろんなやり取りはしてたけども、おかしくなっちゃってるから、もうそれすらも今はできてないね。
Do you feel these islands belong to Japan?
それは難しいですよね。よくわからない。
This is a place that clearly very few people come to. There are barely any hotels, restaurants, and locals are confused by what we're even doing here. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure we even know.
As we continued searching these eerie, empty streets, we suddenly experienced firsthand some of the tension that lies in these neighborhoods.
Why did you say that? I have no idea.
She doesn't like foreigners, maybe?
Very like cute older lady. She just like screamed. I got so mad. Just by seeing me. Didn't say or do anything. Was not in her way or anything. Just got like really mad. I wonder if it was because she thought that I was Russian or something.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the absolute eastern point that we could possibly get to. And this is the closest to the Kuril Islands that we can get. And we are at the very final lighthouse at the edge of Japan and what feels like the edge of the world. And it is pretty wild. They're just a few kilometers away. You can literally see the coastline. We've made our way to the entire U. We've been told that Nimuro, where we are now, is sort of one of the center points of this conflict, and everywhere we've been driving there's been signs written in Japanese saying give us back the islands. Maybe one day the people of this area will be able to return back to their islands. Look at how close we are to those ones.
Oh wow,
like,
you can literally...
We are right in front of them.
I can see a house on the other side.
You can?
Yeah. That's a house on a contested island.
Yeah. But we don't know if there's any civilians left there, right? As far as I know, it's basically military. There were civilians at one point, but are there people that actually live on these islands these days? It's hard to say, right? When you look at Google Maps, there's nothing on these islands. There's no road, there's nothing. It's just land. Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. It's a house straight by the water that looks towards Japan.
Yeah. We got the dad zoom in. This one, that's how you know we got a dad on our hands. Getting out here to this part of Japan has been one of the more logistically wild trips we've done in a while. Researching what was even possible, booking things in a language we don't speak, hopping between cafe Wi-Fi and hotel Wi-Fi, or whatever random network we could find along the way. It was a lot. Which is actually the perfect moment to bring in the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark, because they have been genuinely a part of how we put this whole trip together. Surfshark is a VPN, and whenever you're jumping between random Wi-Fi networks like we've been, hotels, airports, cafes, it encrypts your data so no one else on that network can see what you're doing. Passwords, bank information, messages, all of it. When you travel the way we do, that peace of mind is not a small thing. It's also the tool we use to stay connected to services from home. Pick a location, hit connect, done. One account covers unlimited devices, so the whole crew is protected on the same subscription. And the app is genuinely one of the simplest ones we use on the road. Go to surfshark.com/YesTheory or use code YesTheory at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it. Being able to focus on the actual adventure rather than worry about whether the Wi-Fi of some random guest house is going to compromise our accounts is literally what this is all about. Okay, now let's get back to exploring this very strange and unique part of Japan.
After exploring this entire coastline in search of answers, we'd really only uncovered more questions. What was the logic behind this territorial dispute? And why did the Japanese still believe these islands rightfully belonged to them? It felt like we weren't getting very far by approaching strangers. So, after returning to the main fishing village, we headed to the front desk of our hotel in search of new leads, which ended up sending us on a bit of a wild goose chase around town.
もしですね、なんかもっといろいろ情報欲しい場合、お隣のですね、建物が観光協会さんなので、
Let's go to this place next door. Thank you. This guy here said there's a city council where we could go and we could potentially find someone who actually lived on this island before but were sent here. Let's do that.
Until eventually, we found a promising lead.
じゃあすみません、先ほどこんにちは。インフォメーションセンターのところで、
北方領土の関係で。
あ、そうですね、はい。
話伺って。
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。
福澤さん、今お電話大丈夫ですか？10分後に来れますということで。
はい。
Wow.
It's like one of those video games where you meet one character, then introduces you to another character.
Yeah.
Slowly we're making progress. We are inside the Northern Territories Museum.
Ah, konnichiwa.
Where are you born, if we can ask?
はい、あなた方が狙っておられる北方領土です。
He's like, I'm from the Northern Islands that you guys are trying to take away from us.
No, we're not Russian. Sweden.
We're on your team, sir. We're on your team.
二人とも講談師なんで私は嬉しいです。
You too, you as well.
You too. Legend.
This explains why this woman was pissed at us before. She thought we were Russians. We have walked into a lecture right now of a man who thought we were trying to take these islands. This man is dedicated. He has waited for this moment, I think, for a while. He had a whole box of things prepared here.
Though we started to get a general idea of the island's history from some of the locals, we'd finally found a historian who had had first-hand experience with the conflict who could give us a full lecture to explain exactly how these islands ended up the way they did.
点ってこう小さい島がこれをひっくるめて北方領土と呼んでおります。
The Kuril Islands sit in a geographically strategic location and have a long history of habitation, conflict, and colonization. The original inhabitants of these islands were an indigenous ethnic group known as the Ainu people. For centuries, their homelands stretch across the northern islands of Japan. They lived in fishing and hunting villages while also trading with some communities across the seas in Japan and Siberia. But by the 1700s, the Ainu found themselves caught between two expanding empires, Japan pushing northward and Russia expanding eastward. Both powers saw the islands as strategically valuable for fishing, trade, and military control.
これぐらい水産物が豊富な島々なんです。17000人の日本人が暮らしてました。
By the 18th and 19th centuries, Russia and Japan were increasingly competing politically and diplomatically over control of the Kuril Islands and Sakhalin. Eventually, Japan fully incorporated Hokkaido and the Kuril Islands into the modern Japanese state, subjecting the indigenous Ainu people to aggressive assimilation policies as their land was taken, and communities displaced by the Japanese settling across the region.
私の生まれた島はここです。この歯舞群島の中のタラクト、ここで私は今から85年前に生まれました。
Wow, how many people lived on the island?
1450人、80年前にですね、いきなり向かいのロシアの兵隊さんがですね、ロシアの国がですね、この4つの島を乗っ取り作戦を始めました。
During World War II, the islands became a critical part of Japan's military strategy in the Pacific. In 1941, ships from the Imperial Japanese Navy gathered in the remote waters of the Kurils before launching the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. the event that would pull the United States into the war. But in the following years, the war turned against Japan, and control of the islands would once again change hands. In the final days of World War II, the Soviet Union invaded the Coral Islands as part of its offensive against Japan. And following Japan's surrender in 1945, almost immediately, tens of thousands of Japanese residents across the region were abruptly displaced from their homes and forced to relocate to mainland Japan.
何にも悪いことしてないのに、ロシアにもかけられて、でロシアの海軍隊がですね、押し寄せてきて、出てからなったらズドン、こういうふうにしてね、脅かされるんですから、もうこのふるさと、生まれ故郷をね、離れざるを得なかったんですよ。
Today, many decades later, most of the people never got the chance to return to the homes they left behind on the islands now under Russian control, and are forced to live with the memory of a homeland still visible on the horizon, yet completely out of reach.
Why did the Russians take these islands? Because it feels, as a set of islands, it's a little hard to understand why they would seize them when they have so much land already.
私はいつもそういうことを思ってます。なんであれだけの大国なのにね、この爪の赤ほどのね、小さい島をね、で本来であれば島でまた生活したい気持ちは片時も離れません。あくまでも我々日本の島なんですから、日本の領土なんですから、それを今のところロシア側は理解してくれません。
Following the Soviet takeover, life on the Coral Islands changed almost overnight. Japanese communities that had existed on the islands for generations were dismantled as Soviet authorities forced the remaining Japanese population to leave. Homes were abandoned, villages were repopulated, and the islands that had once been a part of Japan became absorbed into the Soviet Union.
もう全部元住んでた日本人が住んでた住宅は全部パラパラに壊してて、平らにして、そしてまたロシア風の建築を建てて、いやそのままで住んでる日本人が住んでた家に暮らしている人もいます。
So they came in and destroyed people's family homes, yeah.
そうです、そうです。
And yet, despite the tensions between the two nations, there was still one small concession that remained. In later years, Japan and Russia agreed to allow limited visa-free visits for former residents and their families to return to the islands to visit the graves of loved ones they had left behind. For many, it was the first time seeing their homeland again since being forced to leave as children after the war.
それで16回ほど島に行ってお墓参りね、お墓参りとかそういうふるさとの懐かしい遊んだ場所とかね。
However, after the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, those visits were suspended indefinitely. And today, nearly 80 years after the end of World War II, the islands remain at the center of a dispute that has never truly been resolved.
Does he hope to one day get to go back?
戻りたいです。やっぱり生まれ故郷、ふるさとですもの。やっぱり行きたいですよ。でも今のところそれはまだママがならないで、でたらめに勝手に行ったら捕まって、勝手に行ったら殺されるんです。私がふるさとの島に行ってきました。そしたら島を守るこれロシアの海兵隊というか軍人です。でこれ私です。当時は違うな、今まで初対面ですよ。そしたら寂しそうな顔してたんで、近寄って行きました。だからこの兵隊さんのおじいちゃん時代に、あなた方をみんな追い出したんだってねって、本当に申し訳なかったねっていうことでね、このロシアが私をね抱っこしてやるから許してくださいって言って。
I get very touched by that. You can tell him that we get very touched by the things that he's sharing. He has a very beautiful way of seeing life and seeing how we shall see each other as brothers and sisters. He's the best professor we ever had.
今までで一番いい先生でした。
What a beautiful human being.
Yeah. To think that he didn't seem to have much resentment shows his character. And it also shows that he's just focused on what matters, which is being able to go home. There's no envy or sentiments of revenge. It's just as simple as wanting to have his childhood home back. That's what it's about for him.
He wishes you guys were girls.
Nice.
13回ほど島に住むロシア人を 受け入れしました。
ホームステイみたいな。
役場さんからね、
はい、
今日ロシア人来るんですけど、はい、福沢さんのうちに泊めてくれないかいって言われるもんだから、嫌ですとも言えないしね、そのためにお土産物いっぱいあるんですよ。
なるほど、そういうことです。
それをね、展示するのに、ミニ展示館というか、そういうのも見てもらえばよかったんですけど。
Could be cool to see that.
That would be amazing.
お家のそのお土産とかって拝見させていただくことって可能ですかって。
Okay.
ロシア館を案内しますから、見て写真撮るなりして、ちょっとロシアの空気を吸って帰ってください。
Okay, we are getting into the car now.
Is there anyone in this fishing village that would have been better to meet than this man? I don't think so. He's got photos at the museum. I think he's the guy. I think he's the one guy.
これが私だ。あまり期待しないで見てください。
Oh.
Oh, wow. When he said that he has a Russian room, he really does.
Even though Russia is the country that displaced him from his home, he hosted Russians that came to visit here and built a room from the souvenirs that they brought. That is insane. That is incredible.
これロシアのね。コルティア・エレーナさん。北方四島のエトロフ島に住んでいます。役場に勤めておりまして、いろいろこう我々日本から訪問するでしょ。そう道案内してくれたり。
She was his girlfriend?
恋人って勝手に俺が勝手に言ってるだけで、彼女は何にも持ってないかもしれません。
Oh.
Cinematic clip right here. すごい綺麗なロシア人の方との写真がいっぱいあるんですかって。
僕が好きだから。
Because he likes them.
それで今から80年前に私の生まれた家です。
Oh, that's the house on the island.
うん、そう。これが僕ちゃん。
No way! Wow!
That's the legend.
Wow!
まだこのお家って今でもあるかどうかって。
でもバラバラもう。お墓の前行くともう理由なくもう投げてくるわね。今までの苦労のことを思い出したり、無理やりこう手っぽ向けられて追われたりね。
そうですね。
やはり涙が溢れてきますね。
Yeah. He doesn't seem to have any resentment at all towards Russians. Is there a reason for that?
やっぱりこういうビザなし訪問で行ったり来たりしてるうちにロシア人は陽気で明るい民族だなっていうことが気づいたの。そしたら仲良くしてた方がいいんじゃないかと。だからいつまでも憎んでてもしょうがないと。いつまでも憎んでたんじゃね平和が始まらないっていうことでね自分で悟ったんですよ。
You can tell him we wish to be like him when we grow up.
あなたみたいな人になっていきたいと思っています。はい。
僕のもんじゃないですか。
Well, this is not what I expected at all, but I feel like I learned a lot. My perspective is like totally different.
Yeah.
その深澤さんのその物語っていうのを聞けて、本当にありがとうございます。
あ、そうですね。
はい。
No. An executive decision have been taken by Mr. Peacemaker. We're going down to the ocean. We're going to look at the water together. So.
To be honest, we weren't fully sure what we would find when we first embarked on this journey. But Fukuzawa-san opened our eyes to something we had never been exposed to so vividly before. A compassion despite the pain. An acknowledgement of our shared humanity despite disagreements and conflict. Pretty amazing that we walked around this village looking for someone this morning.
Yeah, and here he stands.
And here he stands.
But he said, this is the island.
Yeah. There are some moments on certain trips where we don't really know what we're looking for, but we know when we found it. And sitting in this room with this man, hearing about his rare perspective, felt like finding the diamond that we've been looking for.
ありがとうございます。じゃあ、名残惜しいんですけども、ここでそしたらさようならです。
ありがとうございました。
繰り返していきますが、快適な旅行を続けてください。
Legend. We literally picked this town by looking at Google Maps before boarding the plane, being like, this town looks like kind of in the middle. Let's go there. Wow. Well, to all the people asking what's your favorite country? Well, it's Japan.
It's Japan.
So I've officially decided.
Me too.
This, at least for now, is another story without a happy ending. These islands, despite meaning so much for those who were once displaced, seem so far down the priority list of both nations. But instead, our lesson is one to simply endure, to keep our heads high, and to, in our best efforts, build bridges with those we may disagree with.
考えはね、いつまでもロシア人を恨んでいては平和が始まらない。
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.